Hello everyone, welcome to DevWave Diaries. If you're passionate about tech and eager to learn, you've come to the right place. In today's video, I'll be showing you part 2 of Hungry Tiger website. Let's dive in. If you want me to create an animated website for you, just share the link in the comments section. It might take a little while, but I'll definitely make a video for you. Except for 3D websites though, my laptop doesn't have enough processing power for those. First, let's head over to our HTML file. We'll start by creating a div with the class name page2. Inside this, create 2 more divs, one with the class name left, and the other named right. Now, inside the left div, let's create another div with the ID heading div. Within this heading div, add 2 h1 tags, and in them, type the words what's and inside, just like I did. Finally, let's add a h4 tag, and write any subtext you like, or simply copy the one I've used if you prefer. Next, let's create a div with the ID item box. Inside this div, add another div and give it the ID item. Now, inside the item div, create an image tag, and set its src attribute to your food1 image. Below that, add a paragraph tag, and write any text you'd like, or you can simply use the same text that I'm using. Once that's done, copy and paste the entire item div 2 more times using Alt+Shift+down arrow. After duplicating, make sure to update the image sources and change the paragraph text for each copied item so they're all unique. Now, you'll see that I've updated all the image src attributes and paragraph texts for each item. Next, let's create one more div with the class name box. Inside this box, add 2 h3 tags and write some short headings. You can use your own text or simply copy what I'm using. After that, create a div with the class name bottom box. Inside it, add an h2 tag, and within that, create a span tag. Then, to quickly duplicate it, copy and paste this span 4 more times using Alt+Shift+down arrow. Next, add some text inside each of the span tags. You can write your own or simply copy the text I've used. Now, let's move over to the right div. Inside it, create an image tag and set its src attribute to the jar1 image. Then, copy and paste this image tag 1 more time, and for the second one, change the src attribute to jar2 image. And that's all the HTML we need for our second page. Now, let's switch over to our CSS file and start styling everything properly. First, let's style the div with the class name page2. We'll start by setting its width to 100% so it spans across the entire screen. Then, set the height to 250 VH, this means the section will take up 2.5 times the height of the viewport. Next, we'll use display, flex to align the left and right sections side by side. After that, set the position to relative so that any absolutely positioned child elements stay within this section. Finally, give it a z-index of 10 to ensure it stays on top of background elements, keeping all its content clearly visible. This is how our page currently looks. Next, let's style the left div inside the page2 section. We'll start by setting its position to relative so we can easily position elements inside it later. Then, set the width to 55% and the height to 100% so it takes up just over half of the page vertically. For the background, use a rich dark brown color, #281006, and set the text color to #Fe33 to create a nice contrast that matches our overall design theme. Now, let's move on to styling the right div. We'll set its width to 45% and height to 100%, so it perfectly complements the left section. Then, we'll use display, flex and set the flex direction to column. This will arrange all the elements vertically inside the right div. Finally, set overflow to hidden to make sure any extra content stays neatly inside the container and doesn't spill out of the layout. Open the browser, you'll see that both the left and right sections are styled properly. Everything is aligned neatly, and the 2-column layout is ready for us to add content and animations. Next, let's style the image inside the right div. We'll set its position to relative, so it stays properly aligned within the container. Then, set the width to 110% and the height to 125 VH, giving it a slightly oversized look for a more immersive effect. Finally, use ObjectFit, cover to make sure the image fills the container nicely without stretching or losing its proportions. Now, let's style the div with the ID heading div. We'll give it some padding, 3 rem vertically and 2 rem horizontally, so the content inside has enough space to breathe. Then, add a bottom border with 5 pixels dotted #Fe33, which creates a stylish separator and highlights the heading area beautifully. Next, let's move on to styling the H2 tag inside our heading div. We'll set the font size to 5 rem to make the text large and noticeable, and increase the font weight to 700 so it appears bold and strong. Also, let's set the line height to 4 rem. This will help balance the spacing between lines and make the heading look clean and visually appealing. With these styles in place, our heading will stand out nicely on the page. After that, let's style the H4 tag inside the left div. We'll give it a margin top of 2 rem to add some space above, and set the font size to 0.9 rem with a font weight of 500 for a clean and balanced look. Next, we'll set its width to 35% so the text doesn't stretch too wide across the section, and finally, add padding of 0.2 rem to give it a bit of breathing room on the sides. This will make our paragraph text fit perfectly within the layout and maintain a neat appearance. Now let's move on and style the div with the ID item box. We'll give it a margin top of 10 rem to create some space above, and set its width to 100% so it spans the full section. Then, we'll add a yellow background to make it stand out, and apply padding of 4 rem0 to add some spacing at the top and bottom. This will help separate our item section visually and make it look more structured on the page. Next, let's remove the yellow background line. That was just for testing, to see how much space our item box div covers. Now, let's style the div with the ID item. We'll set its position to relative, add padding of 0.2 rem, and use display flex to align its contents in a row. Then, we'll align everything vertically with align items, center, add a gap of 1 rem to create spacing between elements, and give it a margin bottom of 1 rem so there's space between each item. This will neatly organize the food items side by side and make the layout look cleaner. Now, let's style the image inside the item div. We'll start by setting its width and height to 3 rem, so it has a balanced size on the page. Next, we'll add padding of 0.5 rem around it to give the image some breathing space. After that, we'll add a border that is 2 pixels thick, solid, and colored with a warm orange shade, #FFAE33. Finally, we'll make the image fully circular by setting the border radius to 50%, giving it a clean and visually appealing look. Next, let's style the paragraph inside the item div. We'll set its width to 35%, so it occupies just the right amount of space. We'll remove any top margin by setting it to 0, keeping it neatly aligned. Finally, we'll set the font size to 0.8 rem, making the text compact and easy to read alongside the other elements. Next, let's style the box div inside the page 2 div. We'll start by adding horizontal padding of 2 rem, giving the content some space from the edges. Then, we'll set a top margin of 15 rem to push the box further down the page. Finally, we'll increase the font size to 2 rem, making the text inside the box bold and prominent. Next, let's style the div with the class name bottom box. We'll set its position to absolute, so it can be placed precisely on the page. Then, we'll position it 10% from the bottom, keeping it nicely anchored near the lower edge of the screen. Open the browser now. You'll see that the div is positioned near the bottom area of the page, exactly where we placed it. After that, let's style the H2 tag inside the bottom box. We'll set its font size to 4.5 rem, making it large and attention-grabbing. Next, we'll set its width to 96% and add horizontal padding of 2 rem, so it fits nicely within the container. We'll also set the line height to 3.5 rem for proper spacing between lines, and finally, we'll make the text bold by setting the font weight to 800. Open the browser now. You'll see that the text in the bottom section is styled perfectly. With that, we've completed the styling part for page 2. Next, let's move on to the JavaScript section, where we'll create scroll-based animations to make the page more interactive. Now, let's first comment out the image frame scroll animation code so we can focus solely on the animations for page 2. If you open the browser, you'll notice that the scroll-based jar animation is now turned off. Now, let's create a variable named TL2, and set its value to GSAP.timeline. Inside the timeline, we'll add an object and define a scroll trigger property. Within the scroll trigger, we'll set the trigger to .page2. Define the start point as 5% 95% and the end point as 103% 95%. We'll also set markers to true so we can visualize the scroll area, and scrub to true to smoothly link the animation with the scroll movement. Open the browser, and you'll see all the scroll markers clearly displayed. But if you scroll down, you'll notice that at the end point, a bit of extra space appears. This happens because there isn't enough scroll area for our animation to finish smoothly. So, let's fix that by increasing the overall scroll area to give the animation enough room to complete properly. Next, let's create a new div with the class name page3. We'll add elements inside it later, but for now, we just need it to increase our scroll area. Once that's done, let's move to the CSS file and style this new section. We'll set its position to relative, width to 100%, and height to 300 viewport heights to make the page tall enough for smooth scrolling. Then, we'll set the flex direction to column, apply a background color of #EB9F36, and a text color of #402011. Finally, we'll add padding of 6 rem top and bottom, 2 rem left and right, and give it a z-index of 10 to keep it above other layers. Open the browser, and you'll see that the page 3 section has been added successfully. Thanks to this, our scroll animation now has enough space, and the scroll end section works perfectly without leaving any extra gaps. Next, let's go back to our JavaScript file. Inside our timeline, we'll use TL2.from. For the target, we'll first select the h2 tag inside the heading div. Then, we'll create an object and add a few properties. Set the color to #52300F, the stagger value to 0.5 so each element animates one after another, and the duration to 0.5 seconds to control how long the animation lasts. Open the browser and scroll the page. You'll see the heading text changes color as you scroll. For now, the animation might seem a bit off, but once we add all the scroll animations to this page, everything will sync perfectly with the scrolling. After that, let's add another .from method in our timeline. This time, we'll select all the item divs. Then, we'll create an object with a few properties, set left to 50%, stagger to 0.3 so each item animates one after another, and duration to 1.5 seconds to control how long the animation lasts for each item. Open the browser and scroll the page. You'll see the item divs moving from right to left, one by one, creating an amazing scroll animation effect. Next, let's add another .from method in our timeline. This time, we'll select the h3 tag inside the box div. Then, we'll create an object with a few properties, set the color to #53200F, the stagger to 0.5 so multiple elements animate in sequence, and the duration to 0.5 seconds to control how long the animation lasts. Now, open the browser and scroll the page. You'll notice that the h3 tag starts with a dim color, but as you scroll, it gradually becomes lighter, creating an engaging and visually appealing user experience. After that, let's style the span tags inside the h2 div. We'll set their color to #52300F and add a stagger of 0.2, so each span animates slightly after the previous one, creating a smooth sequential effect. Open the browser and scroll the page. You'll see that each span tag inside the h2 gradually changes from a dim color to a bright color, creating a lively and engaging visual effect. Now, let's uncomment all the previous JavaScript code for page 1. After that, remove the line markers, true from the TL2 section to hide the scroll markers and make the animation look clean. Now, open the browser, and you'll see how our two pages look so far, complete with all the scroll-based animations and styling we've added. Now, let's comment out the jar animation from the first page again, so we can focus on the page 3 section. Next, open the HTML file, and inside the page 3 div, let's start adding some elements. First, create an h2 tag and write a short heading inside it, or you can simply copy the one I'm using. Then, create another h2 tag and add a second short heading inside it. Next, let's create a paragraph tag and add some long descriptive text inside it. After that, create a div with the class name box. Inside this box, create another div with the classes card and cardWrite. Then, inside that div, create one more div with the class name cardTxt. Inside the cardTxt div, add an h4 tag and write the number 1. Below that, create a paragraph tag and add a short piece of text. Finally, add an image tag, and in its src attribute, insert the link for the pick1 image. Now, let's duplicate the box div 2 more times. You can do this quickly by pressing Alt plus Shift plus down arrow. After copying, we'll update the content inside each cardTxt div. Change the text in the h4 and paragraph tags to make them unique for each box. Also, don't forget to update the image tag's src attribute with different image links. As you can see, I've already updated all the box divs with new content. That's all the HTML code we need for the page 3 section. Now, let's move on to the styling part and start designing the overall look of the page 3 section. Now, open the browser, and you'll see our page 3 section with all the images and headings added. However, they're not styled properly yet. So next, we'll go step by step and style each element one by one. Next, let's style the h2 tag inside the page 3 div. We'll set its font size to 6 rem to make it bold and eye-catching, increase the font weight to 800 for a strong appearance, and set the line height to 5 rem to ensure the text has proper spacing and looks balanced. After that, let's style the paragraph tag. Set its font size to 0.8 rem and font weight to 600 to make the text readable and slightly bold. Next, set the width to 20% so it doesn't stretch too far across the page, and add a margin top of 1 rem to give some space above the text. Open the browser, you'll see that the heading and paragraph text are styled properly. Everything looks balanced, and the spacing makes the content easy to read and visually appealing. Next, let's style the box div inside the page 3 div. We'll set its width to 100% so it spans the full section, add padding of 2 rem for some inner spacing, and set its height to 36 rem to give it a substantial area for the content inside. Then, let's style the card div inside the page 3 div. We'll set its width to 30 rem and height to 33 rem to create a nicely sized card. Next, set overflow to hidden so any content that exceeds the card's boundaries stays neatly contained. Open the browser, you'll see how our card div looks. It's neatly sized and ready to hold content, with any overflow neatly contained inside. Next, let's style the div with the class name cardLeft. We'll set it to float left so it aligns to the left side of the card. After that, let's style the div with the class name cardRight. We'll set it to float right so it aligns neatly to the right side of the card. Now, if you open the browser, you'll see that all the cards are aligned to the right side. However, we want the middle card to appear on the left side. To fix this, let's move to the HTML file, find the middle card, and change its class name to cardLeft. This will properly align it to the left while keeping the other cards on the right. Open the browser again, you'll see that the middle card is correctly aligned to the left section, while the other two cards remain on the right side. This creates a balanced and visually appealing layout for our card section. Next, let's style the card text div. We'll set its display to flex so the content is arranged in a row, align items to center for vertical alignment, and add a gap of 1 rem to create spacing between elements. Finally, we'll add a margin bottom of 1 rem to separate it from the content below. Next, let's style the h4 tag inside the card text. We'll give it a background color of #402011 and a text color of #EB9F36. Set its width and height to 2.5 rem. And make it circular using border radius 50%. Then, use display flex, justify content center, and align item center to perfectly center the text inside. Finally, set the font size to 1.2 rem to make it clearly visible within the circle. Open the browser, you'll see that the H4 tags inside the card text div are styled properly. They're perfectly centered and circular. After that, let's style the paragraph tag inside the card div. Set its width to 35% so the text doesn't stretch too far, and set margin top to 0 to remove any extra space above it. Open the browser, you'll see that the text inside the card elements is styled properly. The headings and paragraphs are aligned nicely, and the spacing makes everything clear and visually appealing. After that, let's style the image tag inside the card. We'll set its width to 100% so it fills the card, give it a height of 29 rem, and apply a border radius of 5 pixels to give the corners a smooth, rounded look. Open the browser, you'll see that the card images are styled properly. They fit perfectly inside the card, and the rounded corners give them a polished and professional look. After that, scroll up a little and find the div with the class name card. Then, add rotate 6 degrees. This will rotate all the card elements slightly, giving them a more dynamic and visually interesting appearance. Now, if you open the browser, you'll see that all the cards are rotated by 6 degrees, creating a more dynamic and interesting layout. And that's all the styling we need for page 3. Next, let's move to our JavaScript file to add some smooth scroll animations to this page and bring it to life. First, let's create a variable named TL3. For its value, we'll use the GSAP timeline code from the previous TL2 variable as a starting point. Then, we'll update the trigger to .page3, set the end value to 95%, and enable markers to true. This sets up a new scroll animation specifically for our page 3 section, allowing us to control how the animations play as the user scrolls. Open the browser, you'll see the starting and ending scroll markers added to our page 3 section. These markers help us visualize where the scroll animations will begin and end, making it easier to fine-tune the effects. Next, let's use TL3.from to animate the H2 tag inside the page 3 div. Inside the object, set the color to #C8852D, add a stagger of 0.2 seconds so the letters animate one after another, and set the duration to 0.2 seconds for a smooth effect. This will create an engaging color animation for the heading as the user scrolls. Open the browser and scroll the page, you'll see the heading text gradually change from a lighter color to a darker shade. This creates a subtle and engaging scroll-based animation that draws attention to the heading. After that, let's add a .to method to our timeline. Select the div with the class name card, and inside the object, set rotate to 0 degrees, add a stagger of 0.5 seconds, and a duration of 0.5 seconds. This will smoothly rotate all the cards back to their original position one by one as the user scrolls. Open the browser and scroll through the page. You'll notice that first, the heading text in the page 3 section gradually becomes darker, and as you continue scrolling, the cards smoothly rotate from 6 degrees back to 0 degrees, creating a clean and dynamic scroll animation effect that enhances the overall user experience. Next, go ahead and remove the markers, true line from the TL3 timeline. This will hide the start and end markers that were only used for debugging and development purposes. Now, open your JavaScript file once again and find the section where we previously commented out the jar animation code. Now, uncomment those lines so that the jar animation becomes active again. Once done, save the file and open the browser. You'll see that the scroll animation for the jar image is now working smoothly again on the first page, blending perfectly with all the new sections we've added. If you enjoyed this tutorial and found it helpful, please give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to stay updated with all our latest content. Your support helps us create more exciting and valuable videos. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode of DevWave Diaries.